We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. But my girl wants to party all the time, party all the time, party all the time. Get him.
Hello there, my name is Aaron Moss, and this is the Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour, presented by Head Speaks. This is an hour-ish long podcast where we'll talk about the Will Payton Starman comic and the Mark Shaw Manhunter comic from the late 80s, early 90s. We'll talk about every appearance of these two great characters. If you've never read them or haven't read them in a while, this may be a good time to explore these issues. Now, let's get started with our first comic.
Hey, dear listeners, Brother Ed here, and here we are with our newest episode of the Starman Adventure Show. I believe this month's going to be a quick episode because, well, honestly, we'll get to that in just a minute. And so here we go with Starman issue number 38. Before we get to the issue proper, though, I do need to let you know this is part of the War of the Gods crossover. This was issue 5 of the crossover. War of the Gods, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I didn't reread it for this crossover, for this issue. I read it when it first came out, so many years ago, which we'll get to in a minute. I wasn't a big fan of War of the Gods. And again, that's something that should have been up my alley. And maybe I do need to reread this, but not for this issue because, again, I'm running out of time in my schedule, so I may need to reread this. But War of the Gods was basically the Roman gods and Greek gods in the DC universe were warring, and all of our heroes were in the middle of it. Wonder Woman, of course, was a big part of it. Part of the problem with the crossover, like I said, I just had problems with the crossover in general, and part of the problem was that the numbering was off. Some of the issues came out in the wrong order and were labeled the wrong way. So you read things out of order. And I just wasn't a fan of this crossover. So I didn't reread it for the storyline or for this, for this issue, because it's one issue of Starman that crossed over into it. And I just read this issue. For more on War of the Gods, check out friends of the show and network, the Waiting for Doom podcast. They have a show on there called the DCOCD, I want to say it's called, that they look at all the different DC events over the years, and they had one episode that looked at War of the Gods. So please go over and check out their show if you want more information on War of the Gods, because you're not going to get it here. Sorry, I really need to reread this, but I was not happy the first time I read it. So I'm not looking forward to it. So I will read it at some point just because that's who I am, but not right now. So instead, we're going to go ahead and jump into the middle of the action with Starman, issue 38, War of the Gods, part 5. The cover of this, we see somebody, which we're going to find out is Achilles in the middle of the story here, holding up a stage lamp or stage light from like a movie set. About ready to bash Starman over the head, who's down on his knees. Phantom Lady, from the last couple of issues, is jumping in behind him, feet first. Got a nice crotch shot of her, about ready to bash him in the back of the head with her feet. We get some people dressed up as Greek people, I guess, running around in the background. Pillars are falling down. At the bottom of the page, it says, "The gods must be crazy." A decent cover. Will's face looks a little odd. Just being part of the whole War of the Gods crossover brings it down for me. But we do have a beautiful shot of Phantom Lady drop kicking Achilles here, coming from behind them. So that's a nice shot. Again, as Shag would say, she's hot. And as Kevin would say over on my G.I. Joe show, hot. But anyways, I'm getting off track. It's a decent cover. Like I say, it just, for me, I mean, we see a couple of the sets coming apart in the background. I've almost missed this. Guy in the background with glasses peeking out, looking at the action going on. Not a bad cover, and it kind of shows us what's going on in the issue. So It's just, I say, it's just the whole War of the Gods left a bad taste in my mouth all these years later. So, and I'm getting ahead of myself. Almost forgot to read off the credits for this issue. Let's go and do that.
The cover date was September of 1991. The on-sale date, July the 30th, 1991. The cover price, $1. The title of this was called The Strange Odyssey of Achilles. This was written by Len Straczynski, penciled by John Calmy, inker Roy Richardson, letterer Robert M. Piana, and colorist Tom J. McCraw. And this was reprinted in Wonder Woman, The War of the Gods Omnibus hardcover, which came out in 2020. And this was edited by Katie Main, and the cover was done by Kevin McGuire and Rick Bryant. Kevin McGuire, that's where that facial expression's from. I wasn't quite sure about Will's facial expression, and that's what it is. It's Kevin McGuire. He's got a distinctive style. So it makes sense now.
Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the issue itself proper. So our story starts off, we have this beautiful brunette woman dressed up in, like I say, like Greek attire. She's got a, what is that called? Like they wear at toga parties, a toga, I guess. And it looks like a gold headband. We got some Greek statue and just a nice scenery behind her. She's all, "Come to me, my hero. Let nothing stand in your way." She's sprawled out on a bed. A very beautiful, very seductive scene. The next page we go into, she's like, "Helen calls to you, the fragrance that launched 1,000 ships." They were cut. So again, we're finding out that it's actually a commercial that's being filmed. We've got Carol sitting here hugging the director named Homer. And she's like, "Homer, I think you got it. Of course, am I not the best spot director in Phoenix?" She's like, "No, but you are very good. And the cheapest." "Yes, well, we all must make a reputation for something. I promised one day shoot, and I delivered." And Will goes over to the gal on the couch, and we find at this point that it's actually Phantom Lady. He's apologizing. "Well, I didn't plan on this being a cheesecake shot. I was looking more for a Ridley Scott approach." And she's like, "Don't be silly, Will. It's just acting. No one would think this is the real me." He's like, "This is what I do best as Phantom Lady, create illusion." So again, didn't realize when I first read this that this was Phantom Lady until she tells us who she is right here. So it's a nice way to let us know who's who. Because again, without her distinctive costume, a lot of times it's hard to tell, which characters are which from the drawing sometimes. So, and like Carol comes running up, beautiful, super, just perfect, and gives her a big hug. "I don't know where Will found you, but he's discovered a star. And I hear he's good at that." Because yeah, Will Payton, Starman, get it, found that's cute. In the background, they got a Trojan horse being rolled in, and Carol's going on how, this is the first national commercial, but could lead to more. She sees a series of spots. "You and great heroes of history, Hercules, Samson, Hercules." It's like, "and that guy with the bad foot, what's his name?" And as she's talking, Will's like, "Carol, let's not get too excited. It's just Dee's just doing this spot as a personal favor." And as Carol's going in, naming, Samson, Hercules, and they got the bad foot. We cut outside, and there's a storm brewing, lightning, rain, clouds, and a upside down funnel starts appearing on the ground. And Hercules, the guy from the cover, appears in the front of it. And that's when she's like, "The guy with the bad foot, what's his name?" "Hercules, that's it." And we get a real close up of his eyes. He's scanning around like, look, like what the hell's going on? And he walks into the building, Helen calls to me, the beautiful Helen of Troy. And as he comes in, he thinks our Phantom Lady is actually Helen of Troy. So he comes in again as Greek gods and demigods and whatever are wont to be. He's very prideful and boastful. And, he comes in basically expected to take, in quotes, Helen there on the spot. And he's all, "Helen, I have heard your call." And both Carol and Will's like, "Who are you?" "Achilles, the greatest warrior of all Greece, has come to make you his own." And Phantom Lady's like, "Oh boy, this is weird." I don't care for this crossover from what I remember, but again, this is a great issue of the crossover, so I will give it that. And Homer, the director, comes over, "Hey, you, get off my set." And Will also, he comes over, he's like, "Listen, pal, we're shooting a commercial here." And Achilles just knocks Will across the room, and then he goes to pick up Phantom Lady, and she's like, "Hey, watch those hands, mister. To hold you is ecstasy." And Phantom Lady, "Boy, have you got a wrong number." And she just kicks him in the head, knocks him back. "Star of Ilium, why do you reject me? Star of what? And Will's like, Ilium, ancient Troy. Carol's like, I'm confused. Carol, get the police, quick. And as Carol runs off, like, Homer comes running after her. Wait, you might need help dialing the phone. Because again, he's got the hell out of Dodge. And Will starts pulling his shirt off. He's like, this is a job for... And Phantom's like, oh, I smell a slugfest. Like I said, Will's pulling his shirt off. He's like, this is a job for... And then he just stops. He just flexes his muscle and rips the shirt and pants off. He's like, I don't know how Superman does this. This is faster and easier. It may be faster and easier, Will, but you're going to go through an awful lot of clothes ripping them. That's why Superman takes them off, folds them up, puts them in his little pouch in his cloak, or wherever he puts them at this time in life. Because, again, yeah, you go through a lot of clothes just ripping through them like that. But it's a very neat reveal. I know Superman has got his shirt reveals where he rips the shirt open and shows the Superman costume. This is very nice also. And then Hercules sees an actor and he's like, Agamemnon, you besure even into the walls of Troy? And Will steps in. He's like, hey, you started this, fella, but if I have to, I'll finish it. And again, there's a little fight here between Will and Achilles. And Achilles keeps calling Will Agamemnon. And Will heats up his sword, makes him drop it. But again, it's Achilles. He's almost invulnerable. So as Will punches, he says that, the real Achilles is supposed to be invulnerable. We'll see about that. And he just gives a super punch. And he's like, mighty blow, sir. Yeah, I thought so too. I guess I was wrong. And Phantom Lady's all, you think he might be the real thing? Will's, I've seen stranger things. She's like, I haven't. And so as Achilles, he's like, you've taken my sword, but we shall wrestle with Helen as the prize. So Phantom Lady rushes off to find her lasers. Will tells her it's probably in the dressing room with her costume. As Achilles grabs Will and just throws him into the set, into the lights. He's like, for Helen! And Will's like, for crying out loud. As he just smashes some of the set and the lights here, throwing Will into it. You are stronger than I remember, Agamemnon. Stop calling me that, huh? He's like, but my skill shall prove superior. And Will's like, I warn you, Achilles, I used to watch pro wrestling on TV. And I like this line. Achilles is like, where's TV? Again, Will kicks him in the face. Well met. As he grabs Will's ankle and throws him again across the room. And again, I love these. I've said this before over on my Head Speaks, where the Atom, we see him shrinking and growing. We see, like, I guess, kind of like a surprint of him doing so here. We see kind of a surprint of Achilles throwing Will across the room. We see a couple of shots of Will as he flies across the room, as he flips around to land on his feet. Flies into Achilles and knocks him into the wall. Like, son of a gun. He really is invulnerable. And again, they're talking as they're fighting. And as a nice panel here on page 11, where Achilles is walking up to Will, who's laying on the floor, and we get a close up of Achilles' ankles and Achilles' heel, and they're talking. He's like, "We're evenly matched, old foe." And Will's like, "I'm getting tired of this. It's time to get." And all of a sudden, Phantom Lady pops up. Her voice at least says, "Hey, Achilles, did you forget about me? Did they have lasers at Troy's at least? Did they at least have lasers at Troy, boy?" And he blasts his heel. Or his ankle. Kind of hard to... I would imagine she's blasting his ankle, but it doesn't take him out. But she's blasting at his feet. What have you done, woman? And Will's like, calling time out to a wrestling match. As he runs, just punches Achilles through the wall out into the rain. And I guess it was supposed to be his heel, because yeah, he's weakened now. He's out in the rain. Hera, goddess of the white arms, why have thou forsaken me? And Will's like, who's he talking to? Phantom Lady's like, he's calling on Hera, wife of Zeus. She was his patron during the Trojan War. What? We had to read the classics in college, okay? And so he's out in the range, yelling for Hera to hear him and give him, he's weaponless and he needs help. And all of a sudden he gets blasted by lightning. And nice page here on page 14, or panel on page 14, where we see Achilles driven to the ground. It looks like there's a sword forming in his hand. Nice shot of the sword forming, because the next panel down we actually see him holding it. And as he's getting this power, Phantom Lady's like, I'm beginning to think he's the real thing. And Will's like, you ought to know. You read the classics. And so he runs at Will with the sword, and he realizes that he's like, as though his veil had been lifted, the veil of my own mortality. You are not Agamemnon, but you are my enemy. And you aren't Helen, but you shall be my prize. And Will's like, I think you're for the booby prize, buddy. And he steps in front of Phantom Lady. And Achilles just knocks Will to the side, and as he does so, I like this line. Phantom Lady's like, as I'm sure many guy will tell you, Achilles, I'm no prize once you get to know me. as she uses the laser on the sword, which doesn't do anything. And he grabs her like, "You're mine. This is not the way to romance a lady. This is not the way to romance a girl." And again, Will comes over and socks him in the head. "I'm not through with you yet, helmet head," and punches him in the head. "Again, you interfere, but the stalemate is over. Now I know how it feels to be truly invincible." And again, a little more fighty fight as he knocks Will down, and he's standing over with a sword. He's like, "To be as powerful as Zeus himself. Now, my enemy, prepare to die." And as he goes to stab Will with the sword, a bolt of lightning comes down, hits the sword, and apparently hits Starman also. Nice panel here on page 16 of Will being thrown aside and Hercules being thrown aside, of the lightning hitting. Crash! And Will's on his knees, his hands are glowing. He said that lightning did something to him. It gave him more power, and he found he's more powerful now. So I keep wanting to say Hercules. Achilles runs up to him with the sword, and Will grabs the sword with his hand, and just a struggle, the two of them here on page 17. Very nice struggling between the two, as I believe Will melts the sword. I'm not quite sure. We see him holding the sword, and we hear the sound, and it's lighting up with energy, and Will's like, "Now!" And next thing we know, the sword's gone. It's just the two of them on their knees struggling with each other. And Will's like, "He's supposed to be invulnerable. I've got to give it everything I've got." Hey, a nice panel of them just here on page, not panel, but a full page spread on page 18 of them struggling, the energy going between them as they're fighting it out here on the grounds. And as Will's holding them, all of says, "Give it up before." And then the next panel, Achilles, he's got like a yellowish glow around him, and then he disappears. And Will's thinking he vaporized him because he has so much energy coursing through him. And Phantom Ladies tell him, "No, you didn't do that. It looks like he disappeared." But Will thinks he's lost control of his powers. He just killed that guy. And again, as I've said before, that's one thing I love about Will Payton, is that he's very much the everyman. He's very much concerned about how much power he has and what he's doing with it. And he doesn't want to lose control. He doesn't want to be a killer, in quotes. He doesn't want to, he's always worried about his power level. So he flies off to find Kitty because he's like, "I've got to find Kitty. She knows what to do." As Phantom Lady's trying to assure him, "You didn't kill him, honest." And Will's, he's entire thing he's thinking, he's like, "I've never felt so strong, out of control." He lands, "Kitty, you got to, shh, quiet later." And we're getting, she's watching the weather report that there's energy effects are much stronger. The weather's getting worse wherever they're watching it at. I guess not weather report. I think she's talking to somebody. She calls him Carson. So I'm wondering if maybe it's Cave Carson from the Challengers, or no, Cave Carson, I forget the name of the group he was with. But that's all I wonder who that is. She calls him Carson. Again, I didn't read the War of the Gods series, or miniseries once again, so I'm not sure if it shows up in there. And apparently there's some, they've got some strange things going on. He said he's requested help from Super, and then all of a sudden it crackles out. And she's like, "Well, how fast can you get to Little America in the Antarctic? Antarctica, I don't know, a few hours at top speed, I guess. That's what I'm hearing. My energy levels are going crazy." And she's like, "I'll have to wait. Carson's whole team is at risk." And he's like, "Give me some coordinates, I'll go." And that's one thing I don't like about the way this is written. This part here is that Kitty's coming, and again here further on, she's saying, "Hurry back, because I want to spend another weekend without you, without supervillains." And she is commenting here that she's noticed that his aura almost looks too strong. There's something wrong with him, but he's trying to explain to her that there's a problem, and she's kind of brushing him off like, "I don't care about that. You need to go do this first." And maybe it's just me. I don't know what it is. It's just, I don't like the way she just kind of brushed him off when he's there. "I'm here about a problem. Well, I don't care about that right now. You need to go do something else." And I don't remember if that shows up later in the storyline over in the War of the Gods. But Will goes flying off, and he's talking about how he's flying top speed, usually twice his top speed. He can feel the energy inside him, still accelerating. And as he's flying off, I like the energy beam that's around him as he flies. Superman just flies right past him, brushing him aside. Doesn't pay attention. He's like, "Superman, hey." Okay, so I'm still not the fastest thing in the skies, but I'm running a close second. And again, I don't know about Superman brushing past him like that. Superman would at least say, "Hey, Will," or "Hey, Starman, I'll talk to you later," something like that. I don't like the way Superman is very distant, but again, it may be something from the larger storyline. And this is where the story ends. It says, "Be continued in the War of the Gods," and next month, Plasmix is back. So again, looks like it's just a one-shot deal crossing over the War of the Gods. I don't have any information at this point on it. As I said, I didn't reread that War of the Gods, but the story itself wasn't bad. A couple little, like I say, nitpicks with the way Kitty was kind of dismissing him and Superman just flew past him without saying anything. I don't know if that ties into the larger story or if it's just the way it's written in this issue. Straczynski, I don't know I can't recall if Len Straczynski's written Superman this title before. Maybe that's the way Len writes Superman. But again, overall, the art's in this book's really good. Phantom Lady is beautiful as always. Nothing really to do with subplot. Again, this is just a throwaway story, if you will. I'm sure that when you come back next month, we're not really going to have much reference to this. And you could probably skip this story without affecting the overall reading of Starman. But again, I'm a bit of my ADHD. I don't have this, not diagnosed, but OCD and all that kind of stuff. It's, I had to read this story and put it in here, even if I didn't care for the main crossover with it. And this story doesn't really, as I recall, doesn't have much to do with the book entirely. I mean, some of the characters are out of character on it a little bit. I do like that they included Phantom Lady once again, and Will's pulling her into his life a little bit, looks like. But overall, it wasn't a bad story. It's just, it had some quirks, had the War of the Gods tie-in, but it is what it is. I'm going to play some promos real quick because that's the end of the story. Again, let me know what you guys think. Send me an email to starman@headspeaks.com. Again, that's starman@headspeaks.com. That's the easiest way to do it. And I can read your letters on the air. Let me know what you think. But we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with Coppa Comics Comic Rack.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
The Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour will be back after these messages.
Hey everybody, Michael Bailey here with a trailer announcing the return of It All Comes Back to Superman. Well, sort of the return of It All Comes Back to Superman. Desperate to stay relevant and chase those sweet, sweet podcasting dollars, I've decided that since all of the shows on the Fortress of Bailitude Podcasting Network are moving to a new hosting platform, that I would start It All Comes Back to Superman over with a new number one and name. So really, this is a trailer for the sort of new, pretty much the same as before,
It All Comes Back to Superman Series 2.
It All Comes Back to Superman Series 2 will be... It's gonna be... Oh, God. Are you hearing this music that's playing right now? In all honesty, I chose it because I thought it had a good trailer feel, but the more I'm sitting here listening to it, the more it sounds like something... You know what it sounds like? It sounds like something you would hear in the background of a motivational video your job made you watch that is full of corporate jargon and buzzwords and useless affirmations trying to convince you that working there is some freaking higher calling. Or, you know what else it sounds like? It sounds like it would be behind an ad on YouTube that is trying to sell you something that is supposedly life-altering, but in reality is at best useless, and at worst dangerous, and probably should be illegal. Yeah, you know what? I'm done with this music. Yeah, it's over. I'm just gonna go with the music I've licensed for the show. I should have just done that from the beginning. There. That's better. Anyway, It All Comes Back to Superman Series 2 will be pretty much like the first series, just with a convenient new numbering system. Episodes will be erratic at first, because it's me, but hopefully by the end of 2024 they should be released on a regular basis. Some episodes will be one-and-dones. Some will be part of rolling series with names like The Earth 2 Superman Files, and Close Maketh the Villain, the superpowered makeovers of Lex Luthor and Brainiac. There might even be holiday specials every once in a while, as well as episodes from the previous feed making their way over to the new one, just to kind of freshen them up a bit. No matter the subject, movies, comics, action figures, prose, the show will be all about my love and fandom for the greatest fictional character ever created.
It All Comes Back to Superman Series 2.
Part of the Fortress of Bailitude Podcasting Network. Available through Libsyn on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and other podcatching platforms. Show notes and other bits and bobs will still be available on posts over at www.fortressofbailitude.com. supermanpodcast.com.
Oh, hi, Dr. Sterner.
Hello, Paul. How are you doing these days?
Yeah, I'm good. Since you, cured me of my DC OCD, I've got so much more time on my hands. It's been for the best.
Well, personally and professionally, I'm quite proud of what we have achieved, but I have some bad news for you, Paul.
Oh, what?
There's something missing without your DC OCD there.
Oh.
I've even heard friends of yours been saying you're basic, a little boring. There's no there there.
Oh, well, what should we do about it?
My God, I hate to have to say this, but we have to go bring it back somehow.
Well, shall we do some more sessions and I can use them to talk about DC events that we haven't covered, like Dark Crisis and Fear State, those sorts of things?
I think that might be for the best, Paul. Let's reconvene in 2024 for more sessions of DC OCD.
And that'll make me interesting?
We will see, Paul. We will see.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Mike.
Man, it sure is great to be back from crisis to crisis after all this time. It's been a busy year for both of us.
For very different reasons.
But now we're ready to cover the post-Death and Return Superman stories.
Yeah, and we're about to start the books that came out in 1994, which means that we have so much to look forward to, like Bizarro's World.
The Battle for and Fall of Metropolis.
Superman Doomsday, Hunter, Prey.
Worlds Collide.
Well, you're looking forward to that one.
Oh, bite me.
0 Hour.
0 Month.
And right there at the end, we have Dead Again.
And don't forget the Elseworlds annuals as well.
Well, most of them anyway.
Yeah, some of those really did suck, don't they?
But From Crisis to Crisis is back. New episodes will drop on Thursday, just like before.
You can find the show at the Superman homepage, www.supermanhomepage.com, as well as at the Superman Podcast Network, which is at www.supermanpodcastnetwork.com.
And we also have a Facebook page that you can like by going to www.facebook.com/FromCrisisToCrisis, a Superman Podcast.com. Is it .com on there? No, it's not. No .com. Forget that.
So From Crisis to Crisis is back, folks, and better than ever.
Well, I'm better than ever. You need some work.
No, shut up.
No, you 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 shut up.
From Crisis to Crisis,
You suck.
a Superman podcast, covering the post-crisis adventures of Superman, one half month at a time. Every Thursday at www.supermanhomepage.com and www.fortressofbaileytude.com.
Hope you guys enjoyed those promos. I had two Supermans sandwiching a DC OCD show. I think I got that name right. But definitely check out those shows. Some great shows. I love Mike Bailey's Superman shows. I love the OCDC show. Fantastic time. So definitely check them out. But time for the final segment of the episode. Let's bring out
Copy Comics, Comic Rack. These are the books that came out in July of 1991. Again, I'm reading off all the books, just the ones that, for whatever reason, grabbed my attention. So let's go and get started. The first one up is the NAM, or the NAM, however you pronounce it. Issue number 60. I believe this was started by Larry Hama, but currently it's being written by Chuck Dixon. Definitely, it was a good series. I didn't read it all. It wasn't quite my cup of tea, but I've heard good things about it. In fact, I know my buddy David Finn over on the Signal podcast, he's always talking about and with Chuck Dixon. So I'm sure he's talked about the NAM over there. If not, he's talked to Chuck Dixon. Also this month was Action Comics 668. This was, the cover had Lex Luthor Strikes Back. This was reprinted in the Superman, They Saved Lex Luthor's Brain, trade paperback. Being written by Roger Stern. Again, great era of Superman. I loved it. Also this month was, so real quick for Action Comics for Superman, You can hear more about Superman from this era over on Michael Bailey and Jeffrey Taylor's From Crisis to Crisis, a Superman podcast. Love that show. Also this month was Action Comics Annual number 3. This was part of the Armageddon 2001 crossover. Again, I know that the DCOCD did an episode on that, and I also covered Armageddon 2001 over on my Head Speaks podcast here a year or two ago. Definitely check that out. Also this month was Advanced Dungeons & Dragons number 32. I wasn't buying it at this time, but it's D&D, so I had to mention it. The Adventures of Captain America number 1 came out this month. I'm pretty sure I bought this one. It looks like it was probably either reprints or retellings of older Captain America stories, because the cover has Captain America with his triangle shield and looks very World War II-ish. So I'm going to mention this because I had the first issue of it, The Adventures of Kool-Aid Man. I have got that somewhere. The Adventures of Superman 482. This was Superman fighting the parasites. Again, this was being written by Jerry Ordway, one of the fantastic writers, artists, creators of our generation. Definitely had that. And again, that was being covered over on Michael and Jeffrey's From Crisis to Crisis podcast. Again, I'm going to mention this just because it's here. Adventures of Super Mario Brothers, number 8. I wasn't buying it. I think I only got the first issue, but again, my son loves Mario Brothers, so I'm going to mention that. Also this month, I'm going to skip some of these titles. We're going to go down to Alpha Flight 100. Again, this was a Billy book. Looks like maybe the final issue of it, or just this 100th issue. Maybe not the final issue. It was the 100th issue special. Also, Alpha Flight Special number 3. Also this month was Amazing Spider-Man number 351. It was part of the, is it called? The Sentinels, the title of that, but looks like a Tri-Sentinel. So the Tri-Sentinel is attacking Spider-Man. Again, this is being written by David Michelinie. Great storyline. I love this era of Spider-Man. Animal Man number 39. This was when Tom Veitch was writing it. This was when it was headed towards the Vertigo line. Not quite there, but working on it. It wasn't bad. I didn't enjoy this as much as I enjoyed what Grant was doing on it, but this was still a good title. A handful of Archie books which we're going to skip. We're going to move down to the Avengers in issue 337 and 338. I was buying these. Also Avengers Annual number 20, which was part of the, as I talked about last month, each during the summer, Marvel had their titles, a bunch of them grouped together and were crossovers with other books. Just looking real quick and seeing if it was in this. But this is part of the crossover. Avengers West Coast number 74. Also this month, there was Batman number 467 and Batman 468. Also this month, moving on from there, just to mention, there's Beetlejuice in the Netherworld number 1. Again, I wasn't buying this, but I enjoyed the Beetlejuice movie, and my ex-wife enjoyed the Beetlejuice cartoon. There's a handful of Betty books, Baby Huey. I mentioned this because my wife was a huge fan. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey number 1. Also this month, there was Captain America number 391, part of the Superia Stratagem. Again, I was buying Captain America. I loved it at this era. Also this month was issue 392. Captain Atom number 56 was also out this month. This was being written by John Ostrander, so it's part of the John Ostrander verse, as I refer to it as. Again, for more on Captain Atom, there's the Silver and Gold podcast by friend of the show, Jay Jones. Also this month, moving on, there was Challengers the Unknown, number 7. Again, this was a 12 issue. Looks like on the cover, a couple of the Challengers had died. Again, I've talked about the Challengers before. We'll talk about them again, I'm sure. Moving on, Clive Barker's Nightbreed number 11. I wasn't buying that one, but again, Nightbreed was a good movie, and it spawned a lot of stuff from it. There was some role-playing games and these comics. The comic number, try that again. The Comet number 2, this is part of the Impact line of comics. We've talked about that. I was buying these at the time. So Conan books we're going to skip over. Damage Control number 4. Again, this was a Marvel comic. I enjoyed Damage Control. It was more of a humorous look at the Marvel universe and what the people that had to clean up after the heroes got done. Also this month was Daredevil number 296. I was buying Daredevil at this time. I was enjoying it. Good book. Dark Hawk number 7. Also this month was Deathlock number 3. Again, I was enjoying these books. Looked like this month Deathlock was taking on Dr. Doom. Also this month, jumping back over to DC for a moment, there is Deathstroke the Terminator number 2. Pretty soon here, I don't think it's yet, it's going to start crossover with the Teen Titans and the New Titans. Of course, I was buying Deathstroke because I was buying everything. I just throw this out there for the adults out there. Debbie Does Dallas number 5. It just strikes me funny to see these. The Demon, number 15, over at DC Comics also. Staying of DC for a bit, we have Detective Comics 635 and 636. Also, there was Dr. Fate, number 31. I really enjoyed this version of Dr. Fate. This was the Enza Kent, it looks like, or Enza Nelson Dr. Fate, when Dr. Kent Nelson's wife took over as Dr. Fate for a while. Also this month, there was Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, talking about doctors and mystics and all that. This was issue 33. And staying with doctors for a moment, I didn't buy it, but there's the Doctor Who magazine, 176. Also this month, there was Excalibur number 41. Talked about this before. It was a Billy book. Fantastic Four number 356. When I was buying, this is being written by Tom DeFalco at the time. Also this month was Flash 54. This was the Wally West Flash. Again, I enjoyed this series. Also Flash Annual number 4, part of the Armageddon 2001 crossover. Definitely recommend that. That was part of my 2001 coverage I did. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I had the late great Zoom Yukinori on my show for that episode. Great artist, great podcaster, just a great guy all around. He's sadly missed in the podcasting. Moving on, also from Impact Comics, there was The Fly number 1. Also, G.I. Joe number 116. The Destro storyline, it looks like. Destro was wanted. The issue was called Destro Must Die. Again, some Yahoo over on the Headcast Network talks about G.I. Joe. Some podcast called G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast. Check it out. Ghost Rider number 17. Also this month was Green Arrow number 51. And Green Lantern number 16. And following that up, there was Green Lantern Emerald Dawn 2, number 5. Like it was the Prison Riot episode or issue. Also, there was Guardians of the Galaxy number 16. As I've talked about before, this isn't the Guardians of the Galaxy you see at the movies. In the current comics, this is the futuristic team of heroes. I really enjoyed that version. That's what I wanted. But I'm not going to get it. I already complained enough about that. Hawk and Dove number 27. This was next to the last issue. I will be covering Hawk and Dove somewhere, some way, somehow here on the Headcast Network. Just not sure how. Hawk World number 15. This was part of the War of the Gods crossover, which we just mentioned this episode, or worse. Hellblazer number 45. Again, that's a Billy book. The Impossible Man number 2. This was a special. Impossible Man's one of those funny characters. In fact, somewhere, I think it was in I forget if it was in a Fantastic Four book or if it was a Superman book, they were kind of hinting that Impossible Man and Mr. Mxyzptlk might be the same person. That's kind of funny. The Incredible Hulk number 385. Again, I was enjoying The Incredible Hulk at this time. This is being written by Peter David. Fantastic story. Incredible Hulk Annual number 17. This is part of the Subterranean War. I'm guessing it probably crossed over with the Fantastic Four, I'm thinking maybe. I'm not sure right off. Moving on, Infinity Gauntlet number 3. As I've talked about, this ties into the whole Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War, and all that the the last couple of year Avengers movies were based on. Everything led up to Thanos. Iron Man 272 is out this month. Also, Iron Man number 12. That came out this month. That was part of the war that we just talked about just a moment ago with the Incredible Hulk. Jaguar number 2 from Impact Comics. A couple of Jughead books. Justice League issue. Let me see, what is this? Justice League America number 54. This was part of the Breakdown storyline, which, yes, followed by Justice League Europe, part of the Breakdown storyline. Again, this is when Justice League was kind of stopping the Bwahaha era and was moving back into more of a normal superhero-ish title. Again, for more on the Justice League, check out Shag's JLI Bwahaha podcast. Also for Justice League, there was Justice League Quarterly, number 4. I'm shoving that one over there also. There was Justice Society of America, number 6. Moving on from there was Legion 91, issue 31, plus annual number 2. Again, the annual I covered over on my Armageddon 2001 crossover when I talked about that, over on Head Speaks. And I've got some podcasting friends that talk about the Legion. I'm trying to remember who they were off. I think Derek Crabb covers it over one of his podcasts. Forgive me, guys, if I forget who that covers these books. Also this month, Legends of the Shield, number 3. That was a Impact title. Legends of the Dark Knight 21, a Batman book. This was part of the Batman that was out of continuity that turned into continuity eventually stories. Also this month, there was also Legion of Superheroes number 22. This, as I've talked about before, was the 5 Years Legion. 5 years later Legion. This storyline was called The Quiet Darkness Part 2. Also this month, we move on to Mark Spector, Moon Knight, number 30. I was enjoying Mark Spector. Marvel Comics Presents 84, 85. Both of those were out this month. That was a bi-weekly series. This was covering, I believe this was still covering or at least 84 was covering the Weapon X, the origins of Wolverine. And then the next issue went back to regular Wolverine stories. It had a cover by Sam Keith, I think it is. Yeah, Sam Keith was his artist. Not a huge fan of Sam Keith, but what you gonna do? But the Weapon X storyline was great. There was an Avengers graphic novel called Death Trap, The Vault. Also, there was Marvel Tales featuring Spider-Man 263. Looks like this had Morbius in it. Again, Marvel Tales was a reprint Spider-Man title, reprinting other Spider-Man books or issues. I didn't buy these, but just because I love the movies. Men in Black, Book 2, number 3. The Mighty Thor, number 436. Thor is fighting the Absorbing Man. Again, I was buying Thor at the time. Thor is one of those hit or miss titles with me, as I've talked about. Namor the Submariner, number 18. Also, Namor the Submariner, Annual number 1. This is part of the Subterranean War that we've talked about previously. Again, Namor had a movie out the last couple of years. Not as happy with that, but that's another story entirely. The New Gods, number 28. I've mentioned these before. I'm going to skip them this time, but there was New Kids on the Block titles. There was 4 of those this month. New Titans, number 79. This was part of the Titans Hunt, I believe, which I really enjoyed, though, again, the ending we'll not talk about right now. I plan on covering the New Titans and the New Teen Titans this era at some point, somewhere. And that's going to probably deserve its own podcast at some point. The New Warriors, number 15. Love that book. I know the New Warriors is being covered over on the Long Box Crusade Network. Jared and I believe it's Delvin talk about the New Warriors. Come out and play. Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., number 27. I mentioned I didn't buy this. I don't remember seeing it, but it's a classic. 9 Lives of Felix the Cat, number 1, just because Felix is a classic. Just to follow up on previous mentions of everything having a comic book, as I've talked about, Nintendo Comic System number 8. The official handbook of the Marvel Universe Master Edition number 10. That was their version of the Who's Who, basically outlining all their characters and talking about their powers and strength and all that. The original Ghost Rider Rides Again, number 3. That was a reprint of earlier Ghost Rider stories. Moving on, there were some Peter Pan books I didn't buy. Planet of the Apes, throwing them real quick. Punisher number 52 and Punisher War Journal number 34, plus Punisher POV number 3. The POV was a thicker square-bound book. I bought all 3 of those issues when they came out. Quasar number 26. I know I've talked about Quasar before. Quasar, it looks like he's going up against Thanos in this issue. I know there was a podcast by a friend of the show, the Mean Gene podcasting machine, Gene Hendricks, over on his Quantum Cast, I believe it's called, which I think they've stopped doing, but it's great podcast, great podcasters. Just because of the recentish movie, Real Ghostbusters issues 161 through 164 came out. That was part of Marvel UK. Handful of Richie Rich books, some RoboCop books, Robotech. Again, didn't buy any of those, and I interested really in those. But moving on, Sensational She-Hulk number 31. I was loving that book. Also this month, Shade the Changing Man number 15. I may have still been buying it, but I was getting ready to stop that one. Wasn't as interested in that one. It was getting a little too weird for me. Not getting for me. Silver Surfer number 54 and 55 over at Marvel. Also for Marvel, there's Sleepwalker, a relatively new character. It was on issue 4. I enjoyed Sleepwalker. It was an interesting story. Spectacular Spider-Man 180. Again, love Spider-Man at this time. Speaking of Spider-Man, there was Spider-Man 14. That was the Todd McFarlane drawn and penciled and everything book that Marvel gave him to try to make him happy. Didn't work. He eventually left for Image. Star Trek 23. Star Trek The Modella Imperative number 4. Star Trek The Next Generation 23. Star Trek Generation Annual number 2. And Star Trek The Next Generation The Modella Imperative number 1. Oh, and number 2. A lot of Star Trek books out at this time. Starman number 38, which we talked about this very episode. Suicide Squad number 56. Again, more on Suicide Squad. I do have a podcast, Task Force X. This is part of the Dragon's Horde storyline. If I'm not mistaken, this was getting near the end of the series. Not quite. I guess they're a year away or so, but they're getting there, sadly. But yes, for more on Suicide Squad, check out my podcast, Task Force X. Super Mario Brothers number 1, a variant. Okay, I don't remember that cover, but I have an issue of that, but not that one. Superman number 59, and Superman the Man of Steel number 3. We've talked about this. The Man of Steel title was part of the War of the Gods crossover. For more on that, again, you can check out the DCOD. I'm messing that up. The DCOCD podcast for the War of the Gods, and you can check out Michael Bailey's and Jeffrey Taylor's From Crisis to Crisis, a Superman podcast. Swamp Thing number 111. Also this month there was, we're going to skip the Turtle books and the Terminator books because they're always out. A lot of Terminator books. We're going to jump over to Transformers number 319 and 320. That was part of the Marvel UK story. I believe the regular Transformers had stopped by now. I'm sure we've talked about that previously here. Uncanny X-Men number 280, that there Cyclops looks like he's holding Professor Xavier's body in his arms. This was Mutant Genesis trade paper, but not sure what storyline this was offhand, but I was buying it. Also this month, there was War of the Gods number 1, which we talked about somewhere here recently, but we're not going to get into that. For more on the War of the Gods, as I've said repeatedly this episode, check out Waiting on Doom. Their DCO, CDZC, DVD, DB sections. Back over to Impact Comics, there was the Web number 1. Back to Spider-Man, there was Web of Spider-Man number 80, plus Web of Spider-Man Annual number 7. This on the crossover. Can't make out. It looks like he's fighting Ultron and Iron Man's on the cover, so that was probably crossover with Iron Man. What If number 29. Again, I loved What If. This is what if Captain America had formed the Avengers. What the number 14. Again, more humorous look. Who's Who in the DC Universe number 12. This was part of the loose leaf, the binder versions. Also, is Who's Who in the Impact Universe number 1. For more on Who's Who, check out the Who's Who in the DCU podcast by friends of the show, Shag, the Irredeemable Shag, and Michael Bailey. Also, Wolverine number 45 and 46 was out this month. Wonder Man number 1. I enjoyed this. I think it was a miniseries. I know they're talking about bringing Wonder Man into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's going to be the Ultimate Wonder Man, which was a black guy instead of Simon Williams we have here. Wonder Woman 58. 58, as you may guess, was part of the War of the Gods. Woody Woodpecker number 2, I didn't have that, but it's Woody Woodpecker, so I had to mention that. Poor imitation. X Factor number 70, also X Force number 2. This was the X Factor book reimagined by Rob Liefeld, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to click on it and see. Yeah, it was a Rob Liefeld book. And also X-Men Classic number 63. This was a reprint. This was reprinting Uncanny X-Men 159. And finally, I mentioned it before, I didn't buy it, but I'm going to mention it once again, Zorro, issue number 10. And those were the books that came out this month on the newsstand. Again, if there's something I missed or something you want to talk about, let me know. Email me at starman@headspeaks.com. Let me know what you think. Did you like the issues I talked about? Would you like more in-depth coverage on these? Do you not like this section of the show? Well, let me know. I want to hear from you. Again, as I said, I think it's a bit shorter than normal just because I wasn't a fan of the War of the Gods storyline, but I enjoyed this issue of Starman. Anyways, that's going to do it for this month for the Starman Adventure Show. Join us next month when we look at the next issue and the books that came out that month. Until next time, Star Hunters, keep looking to the sky.
Thank you for listening to another great episode of the Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour. Please join us next month for another great, fantastic episode as we cover another issue of the Will Payton Starman series and the Mark Shaw Manhunter series. Keep in mind that these podcasts are not affiliated or endorsed by DC Comics. I'm just a fanboy who loves these comics and wants to spread these love with everyone else out there and just talk about them. Again, you can email us at smah@headspeaks.com, or you can go to our blog, which is at starman-manhunter.headspeaks.com. You can also go to the Facebook page at facebook.com/Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour. No spaces, all one word. But once again, thank you very much for joining us. Until next episode, this is Aaron Moss saying, see you in the funny pages.